Vayikra last week because it was Purim. Today's shur is dedicated by my dear friend Deanna Rosenfelder, Le'ilui Nishmas, her father, Shlomo ben Aryeh, whose 5th yahrzeit is this Friday. His neshama should have an aliyah, and we should only have good when we're all getting ready for Purim. And I want to just give a little bit of a synopsis of this new Chumash, Vayikra in Hebrew, in English, Leviticus, also known as Torah's Kohanim. Leviticus coming from Levium, because much of Vayikra discusses the laws of the Kohanim, of the Karbanos, the vote of the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash, as well as it covers all the impurity, mikvah, tuma, tara, tumas meis, and all of the relationships, etc. So if you wanted to summarize Vayikra, it's a lot of laws and halachos. The detailed laws and halachos are mostly found in Chumash Vayikra. Now, what's interesting, so Vayikra is also the heart of the Torah because it's the third of the 5 books. So it's the center and heart of the Torah. It's like the middle, the meat of the Torah. So just to put into context, we have Bereshit, the Chumash Bereshit, which was like, Hashem creation of the world, how we got to the individual stories of the Avos, and how we got to Shemos, which was how we became a nation. So the Bereshit was the individual stories, the history of the world. Shemos was us becoming a nation, in going from individual people to 70 people to a whole nation, and then receiving the Torah, and becoming Hashem's nation. And also in the context of the Shekhinah in the world and the purpose of the creation of the world, Hashem ultimately initially created the world in 7 days so that there would be a space, a physical place that is filled with the Shekhinah and the presence of Hashem. After Adam HaRishon sinned, the Shekhinah left the world, and in fact, and later, and it only returned. The Shekhinah couldn't be in the world because there was a sin didn't welcome. The sin created a space where there couldn't be any Shekhinah in the world, and only very much on in Shemos after the Matan Torah, and then there was a Mishkan and a space to bring Hashem into. The Shekhinah finally re-enters the world at the end of Chumash Shemos, at the end after the inauguration and making all the kelim and the building of the Mishkan. Finally, it says the Moshe set up the Mishkan for 7 days in a row, and finally on the 7th day, the Shekhinah entered the Mishkan. So finally, we have this like completion of the Shekhinah coming back to the world after being pushed away from all of the sins that we did, brought back into the world. Now comes the main point. This was all, the entire creation of the world was all leading up to this point that the Shekhinah is now in this world, and now what do we do about it? How do we have a relationship with Hashem? How do we bring Hashem into our mini Mishkan, into the Mishkan, V'shachanti b'socham? The Mishkan was not meant to be a place where Hashem is only in that building. Hashem said, V'asuli mikdash, not b'shachanti b'socho, and I will dwell in it, but I will dwell in you. Really, the Mishkan is just the model home, one of the homes that Hashem wants us to learn from all the details of the laws of the Mishkan and the Karbanot, how to make each of our bodies. So there's not one Mishkan or 3 Batei Mikdash. The 2 Batei Mikdash might have been destroyed in the Mishkan, but there's still millions of mini Mikdashes with the Shekhinah, with the potential to be revealed inside of them, which is our bodies, the Jewish body, the Jewish home. Our job is to bring the Shekhinah into those places. So that's just a little bit of a synopsis. Torah's Kohanim is really, if you go to the name, let's just go back a little bit. The name of this whole book is called Vayikra, which is so unusual. Torah's Kohanim makes more sense, right? Because it's the laws or mitzvos. Vayikra is just the first word. It's just Hashem, and He called. So let's go back to the story. Who is calling who? Vayikra Hashem Moshe. Hashem called Moshe. Why? Because at the very, very, very end of the Chumash Shemos, of the last season, we ended off that the Shekhinah was filled, the Mishkan was filled with Hashem's presence, but Moshe couldn't enter. Moshe was afraid to enter. He said, like, how can I go there? There was too much light. I can't go to that light. So Hashem called him and pulled him in and said, come, and then he was able to enter the Mishkan. Hashem called him in. And really, if you want to frame all of the mitzvahs of Vayikra, a lot of times get lost in the details, and if we look at all these like laws, it's less exciting. There's not so much action in this Chumash of Vayikra. There's less exciting stories. There is going to be some. There's going to be Korach and that crazy story of this being swallowed by the earth, and there's going to be no, that's in Bamidbar. Never mind. There's the sons of Adam, and there is the sons of Aaron dying, but it's less action and more about the details of the laws of the mitzvahs. And you might feel like, okay, as Jews, we might get sucked into this like feeling of like that Judaism is a bunch of yes and no's, things you do and don't do. But the name, to me, that Parsha Vayikra reminds us to don't get jaded to think that the relationship with Hashem is just a list of do's and don'ts that we have to do or else we'll be punished. But to zoom out a little bit and remember what it's all about. The whole reason Hashem is giving us these mitzvot is because there's no possibility for a finite human being and God to connect. There's God, who's infinite, who's creator of the world, and there's us. And the mitzvahs are, each of them are a channel, and then Hashem calling out to us and saying, here is how we can become one. Each of the mitzvahs is an opportunity to become one with Hashem. So it's an opportunity to be in a relationship, just like if you're in a relationship with somebody, how do you actually cement that relationship? How do you actually connect to somebody? Through action, through the deeds that we do for one another, through the time spent together, like Shabbos. Shabbos is not just a bunch of things you can't do because Hashem wants us to, to inhibit us from doing all the things to do. Shabbos is Hashem calling us to Him. Vayikra, it's Hashem saying, come and be with me. Create an island where you're just present, where you're not working so hard, where you're just there and you're present and you're receiving and enjoying all the fruits of your labor. You're enjoying your family. You're finally being able to process and just be and live. So Shabbos is an opportunity amongst one of 613 opportunities for us to become one with Hashem. So Vayikra reminds us that in all these details, don't start making Judaism a bunch of things you do and do, because that's not what Judaism is all about. You're missing the point. If your relationship with your beloved becomes about a bunch of things that you do for me, you don't do for me, I did more, you did more, you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a contractual relationship. Our relationship with Hashem is not a contractual obligation. It's a gift. It's a privilege. It's like we're the Am Segula. Hashem chose us to connect with and gave us 613 opportunities to be one with Him, to unite and to bring the Shekhinah into ourselves. So you want to zoom out a bit and remember that Vayikra is Hashem calling us to be close to Him, right? And somebody, like a lot of times we miss if our beloved calls us, like, come look at this, or I want to show you something, or like we're annoyed because we're busy with something, but instead of, there's a book on marriage, one of the best marriage books called 7 Principles Making a Marriage Work by John Gottman, and a lot of times he reminds us to reframe when your spouse wants you to do something with them or bring them a cup of water as a bid for connection. That we're, a lot of times you get lost and like, no, I don't want to do that, I'm lazy. Instead of, and he says to recognize that those are truly our spouse's bids to connect with us. And when we miss those opportunities, after a lot of missed bids for connection, resentment starts to happen, and basically we want to reframe that. So that was actually a really revolutionary thing for us in the early days of our marriage, to realize that my spouse is not just annoying me and saying, come look at this, or like, I want to tell you about something I read in the paper. It's a bid to connect, to reconnect with us. And all the mitzvos are a bid for Hashem to reconnect with Him and opportunities for us to be one with Hashem. So that's to reframe Vayikra and all the laws. Now, but when we go into Vayikra, a big portion of the laws, in fact, I think the first 2.5 parshios of Vayikra, if not more, are dedicated to mitzvos that seem to be irrelevant, less relevant for our lives right now. The mitzvos of the Karbanos, of the Mishkan, don't seem to be mitzvos that we can do right now. So why are we spending so much time learning it? We spend so much time, there's so many details, there's so many laws of all different karbanos and sacrifices that were brought, and when they could be brought, and when they could be eaten, and where they could be eaten, and exactly what they are, and who ate what time of day. And we can't keep the karbanos now. Even the laws of purity and impurity and spiritual and mikvah and tumas ames, we can't keep those either without the base mikdash. So why are we spending so much time learning these halachos? So I'm going to use 3 answers on different levels. On one level, we learn that we are on the first level. We're going to go deeper and deeper. We're learning them because Bezrat Hashem Mashiach will come any moment, and we will be able to bring the karbanos, and we want to be prepared. In fact, I heard about a group of, I think I mentioned to you that there's a group of Kohanim who already prepared the clothing for the kunas that Mashiach comes. They'll be ready with their clothing. So that's on one level. We want to be ready. We don't want Mashiach to come and be like, oh, right now let's go to class and quickly learn. So we're ready. We have an idea. We know that there's an idea of a karban toda when you go in the sea. We learned in this week's Parsha, so when you travel in somewhere dangerous, if you go to the perilous desert, if you travel at sea, or if you're ill, God forbid, or if somebody, there's one more I encountered, I forget the last one, then he brings a karban toda, gratitude to Hashem for saving him from the dangers. And there's a karban chatas, if you do a avera by mistake, you bring a karban chatas, and there's a karban asham for doing certain purposeful averos, etc. And there's a karban brought every day. Then there's karbanos that are brought on the chagim. We have some idea of it, and we know what to look out for. That's one level. On the next deeper level, we learn that we say davening unishama parim svatenu. Have you ever heard this? That we will repay the parim, the cows, with our lips. What does that mean? In davening, we actually say every single day. We read the chapters of the karbanos that were brought every day, because we replace the actual bringing of it with the learning about it. So we learn that when we learn and we say the karbanos and we learn about them, it's as if we are doing it ourselves. Obviously, and I read somewhere, what's the difference between the two of them? What's the point of bringing it if we could just say it and as if we brought them? That one, when we say it, it affects us. It elevates us to that level. When we learn it, speak about it, when we learn about it, but it doesn't actually affect the world. When we actually bring the karban, it actually elevates each of the karbanos. Something really cool to note. Each of the offerings consisted of the 4 elements. It was about elevating the 4 elements of creation in this world. There's 4 elements in physical creation. There's mineral, earth, and there was salt even added to the animals. Then there's plant life. So there was the flower offerings, the oil that was brought with the animals, the wood that was burned on, So there's the wood, oil, wine that was poured on. All of that is from the plant, the second level of creation, which is plants. And there's the animals. There's different animals that were brought. There is the ox, bull, sheep, dove, bird, etc. No fish. There's another reason why no fish are brought. And then there's the human who's bringing the Adam Kiyakir, the human person who's bringing it. When we bring a carbon, you're actually affecting and bringing and elevating all four elements of physicality in this world. So that's not accomplished.
Why are fish not brought?
Fish are not brought. We learned about Adar that fish are, this is a side tangent, but fish are always aware. We learned that the semen of fish is that fish are always constantly aware of their Hashem in their life, so there's no need to, they have no room for elevation in the fish. All the other animals need to be elevated. So on the second level, we're learning about the Karbanos. It's as if we are affecting the same effect of Karbanos inside us, obviously not in the world around us. That's the second level. And that's why we say the Karbanos every single day to replace the bringing of the sacrifices. And that's what Tefillah replaces the sacrifices. They used to bring a carbon every morning. Instead, we daven every morning, our sacrifice. To Hashem, we bring a carbon mincha because they brought a mincha. The actual carbon every afternoon was called the mincha. It means a gift. That's why we do mincha as a gift to Hashem instead of the carbon. So and in mincha, we're saying karbanos as well. We're repeating the karbanos. So our lips replace the carbon. Our lips are our sacrifice. Just like bringing a carbon was sacrificing your money, your sweat, your blood, your things to Hashem. Daven, your big sacrifice. It's hard. You're sacrificing what you could be doing with your time, your effort, your concentration, especially nowadays, your effort, your focus, your heart, your love, everything to Hashem. That's a second level of why we learn about karbanos and why it's so important to learn them, even though they're not practically relevant in today. And the third and deepest reason is that the laws of karbanos are not just to bring a carbon on the mizbeach. That was just the outer act. That was really to reflect an inner act that was going on. So the carbon in Chassidus learned that when we're bringing a sacrifice, the wording of the Torah, and I'm going to show you in your source, just like when he says Hashem, when he built the Mishkan, he says V'shachanti b'tzivcham, I will dwell in you, not just in the Mishkan. The karbanos have a dual intention and dual purpose. One is the actual laws of the bringing the carbon, but another one is to teach us about the inner psychological act of bringing a carbon in our soul. It means to bring a sacrifice, and we can do that and learn from all the texts the spiritual side of it and the inner part and our microcosm of our life, how we bring a carbon when we want to be close to Hashem. So what is a carbon? Go to the third source. This is the first pasuk in Vayikra. Speak to Bnei Israel. The second pasuk, because the first one is Vayikra. Hashem called Moshe, right? Okay. To come to the 10th. The second pasuk. Daber Bnei Israel v'amarta lehem. This is the words, guys. Adam, a man, a human. Ki yakriv mikem karban l'Hashem, a human from amongst you who wants to bring a sacrifice to Hashem. Now, the words are completely grammatically wrong. If you wanted to say a person from you who wants to bring a carbon to Hashem, you would say Adam mikem ki yakriv, a man from amongst you who wants to bring a carbon to Hashem. And therefore, the translation can only be Adam, a man, ki yakriv, when he wants to come close. The word carbon literally means what in Hebrew?
Sacrifice.
Yes, in English, but what does it actually, the word carbon mean? Karov. It means to come close.
Oh.
So Adam kiyakrev, it means to sacrifice, but it also means kiyakrev, to come close, to bring a carbon. What does it mean to bring a carbon? It means you want to come close to Hashem. Not just because you sinned. You bring a carbon whether you're joyful, whether you want to thank Hashem. Also when you sin, when you're distant. Every reason to bring a carbon is to restore and to become closer to Hashem. So what should you do when you want to come close to Hashem? Adam kiyakrev, not Adam mikem kiyakrev, not a man from you who wants to bring a carbon. A person who wants to be close to Hashem, mikem kiyakrev, a person close to Hashem, mikem karban la Hashem. From you, the sacrifice to God is. The korban, the sacrifice should be from you. You should give of yourself a sacrifice to God. That is how the pasuk is really meant to be translated. To teach us that when we want to be close to Hashem, we have to bring a sacrifice of ourselves. We want to give of ourselves. Now, on one level, it's davening. What is the karban nowadays? You have to daven. When you feel distant from Hashem, sacrifice. Because davening is called the avodah shebelev. It's a labor. It's a sacrifice. It's difficult to daven, and it's a big sacrifice. So that's on one shot of what it means to sacrifice of yourself, to daven 3 times a day instead of the karbanos. And the pasuk continues now and says, what does it mean though to bring this karban, to sacrifice of yourself? What of yourself are you giving to God? Are you giving a limb? Are you giving an eye? Should I sacrifice like in what's the Merchant of Venice? Sacrifice a piece of flesh to God? What does it mean, a piece of myself to God? So he continues, the pasuk Hashem continues and says, Adam kiyakre, when a human amongst you wants to be close to Hashem, mikem karban la Hashem, you should bring of yourself a sacrifice to God. From what? Min ha-behema, from your animal. What is your animal? Your animal soul. From your animal soul. Min ha-bakar, from your flock, from your cattle, from your herd, uminat son, from your sheep, takrivu et karbanchem, bring your sacrifice to God. Now, what does that mean? So, to give some context to it, we learn that every human being is a microcosm of the entire universe. It's actually a theory in quantum physics called the holographic universe theory, that every single particle of creation contains within it all of creation in it. The universe, quantum theory, quantum physics theory. It's really, really cool that every particle, that's what a holograph is. A holographic image is when every piece of the image contains the whole image in it, and that's why it looks like the person is standing in front of you in a holograph or a hologram. And the holographic universe is that every human, every cell, and every atom contains the entire universe in it. And Kabbalah says the exact same thing, that every human being is a microcosm of the entire universe. Everything that exists in the whole universe exists within us. The ocean exists. The ocean is the hidden world. In us, we have our whole hidden subconscious world. We have trees in the universe. Every part of a tree exists within us. We have roots, we have a trunk, we have branches. We learn ki adam eitz sada. And every single element, there's battle, there's a war going on right now. War exists within us at every moment. We're battling between our natural self and our higher self. Everything in the world exists within us in some way. In Chassidut, we'll find it, right? There's you coming from one, we learn even pregnancy, being pregnant with twins, you name it, everything in the Torah will find how it exists in your microcosm, in the microcosm, which means the macrocosm means the universe, the microcosm, human body. Now, why am I saying this? Because every animal, you're like, well, how do I have every animal within inside of me? That was actually what like people just, what one of the things that this theory came to explain was that, someone like will have a concussion and then suddenly they'll speak another language, or they'll think they're an animal. They're like, because within them is contained everything in the world. Like anyone who does reflexology will realize that like every part of the body contains the entire body in it. The ear has every part of the body. It's like a little fetus. The foot has every part of the body, etc. So going back to this, the animal inside every one of us is our animal soul. And there's many types of animals, and our animal soul takes on many different types of animals. No one's animal soul is the same. No one's only one type of animal. And if we want to examine our animal soul, is our natural, instinctual self, the animal that just wants to self-preserve, have what feels good, do what feels good and best for itself. It's our selfish human being that makes us human. And every animal soul is different. Some people's animal soul are like a sloth. They just want to slay and be in bed all day. Some people are like a lion. They get angry. They have a temper. They get mad. Some people are like an eagle. They think they're better than everyone else, right? They're like the birds that feel like they're like perfect and highly and holier than thou. Some people are like a sheep. They're followers. They're afraid to stand up. They're afraid to be the leader. They just follow what everyone else says. Some people are like a goat, that they're stubborn and they never admit that they're wrong. And some people's Yitzhar is like an ox. And literally, I'm quoting not my thoughts. This is the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, has an entire long discourse about avoda of tefillah and describing different animals and how our animal souls take on different forms. We're not always one. Sometimes we're a lion and sometimes I'm a sloth. I could be both, right? I get angry and I want to sleep all day and I want to do nothing all day. I have both inside of me. We have every type of animal inside of our soul. And why how does this connect to Karban? So anyways, that was just going back to the microcosm holographic universe. That was to explain that we have within us every type of animal in our animal soul, some more than others, more pronounced. An ox is someone who, I think he says, bulldozes over everyone else to get to his goal. I want to get to my... And all of these animal instincts are not just negative. They're also positive. They're also our driving force that gets us to where we get to in life. Our animal soul is what fuels us. The animal gets things done. The animal is that power within us. Without our animal soul, we would never be able to achieve anything in life as well. So like the lion, it's, in fact, we learn in I forget where this quote's from, but have the az kanemer, to be bold as a leopard. We have something positive to learn from like an eagle, be as bold as an eagle. Az kanemer, ratz katzvi, as fast as a, where's Pirkei Avos, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ratz katzvi, as fast as a deer. You can learn something positive from a cat to be clever, whatever it was. They're brought down so many places, what we can learn from every animal. So these animals inside of us have so much positive, but they also have their negative side. And now going back to Karbanos, when Hashem says, when you want to be close to Hashem, you have to sacrifice of yourself. What are you bringing of yourself? Your animal soul. You're finding your animal soul and you're sacrificing it to God. So at first glance, you might be like, okay, I have to slaughter my evil instincts, my animal self, selfish self, kill it, throw it in the garbage, get rid of it, and it's bad. I want to just be holy and spiritual. But Hashem says, no, I'm not asking you to get rid of it and dispose of it. In fact, I'm asking you to take of it, to take of your behemoth, of your animal soul, and bring it, not to destroy it, not to throw it in the garbage, but bring it to Hashem as an offering to Hashem, to offer of yourself. And that's the avoda. And how do we do that? So we want to first examine ourselves and see what are my animalistic qualities, what are my animalistic, more selfish tendencies that I have, and how can I bring of that to Hashem? How can I bring Hashem into that part of my life? sacrifice some of that and make it holy rather than destroy it and say this is bad and I'm bad, I'm just not going to have that quality, it's a bad quality, I'm just going to kill it and be miserable. See how I can use that quality for godliness, how I can bring Kedusha. So if I like materialistic things, I was trying to think which animal likes, like every animal likes and wants more food and more. So if I like a lot of materialistic things and I want more possessions, how can I take and sacrifice of that, my materialistic possessions, for how can I utilize it for Kedusha? How can I take all of the things Hashem gave me? That's what the Mishkan is all about, not destroying the gold and silver and all the materialistic things, rather making it a home for Hashem, taking of it and making it home. And we have to look in all, and I want your help because I was trying to think of examples of taking all those qualities and how we can bring God into those qualities, to the more selfish qualities.
I mean, why not just make a statue of silver?
Money is easier. Money, I was like, okay, you give your money to Hashem, you give tzedakah, right? You have home, you have your beautiful home, you bring guests into it. It's harder for like, what do you do with like your brave and your bold, right? Think about how you can use your strong leadership qualities, take and sacrifice of yourself. If you have any more examples, if you have beautiful clothing, rather than saying, okay, don't have nice clothing, share it, give it to people who are in need, share some of what you don't wear anymore, right? Utilize it, or wear beautiful clothing for Shabbos, right? Utilize it to beautify the Chagim. Think about how you could take all those materialistic things and not, rather than destroy them, bring them towards Hashem. And the slaughtering part of it was like to slaughter and kill. You want to slaughter the like passion of it and bring that towards God, that you want that the desire and your timing and pleasure should be for more godly things. That was just a side piece.
Baking for the soldiers, bringing dinner to the soldiers.
Right, cooking food, bring it for Chayalim. There's so many countless ways you can bring and offer your services and your animalistic, and you have to really work hard to think that, and it's just an avoda, to think about how you can bring those animalistic qualities and utilize them for Kedusha. And obviously there's three main ways that we want to, we'll get to that soon. Okay, so that's just a little bit about Karbanos, and how we sacrifice in ourselves, and specifically when we daven, we want to push ourselves to be closer to Hashem by sacrificing, putting aside our animal needs and our animal desires, putting them aside a little bit, instead of eating right away and going to do all the things that I enjoy doing today, that I want to go on my phone, put it aside and daven first, right? Put that aside and give of myself first, and put that and daven and use all my kochos to daven to Hashem. And then we learn afterwards, the pasuk after that I didn't bring for you, that it says that once we do that, once we bring our animal to Hashem, we get lifnei Hashem. We bring it lifnei Hashem, we bring it to a level that's higher, we get to a higher level of Kedusha when we can bring our materialistic animal self to drive to God than we would have with just our godly soul. And a lot of times you think like, what is Hashem for me? My godly soul, my purity, my holy self. No, and we're complete, and that's what makes sense. But Hashem says, no, I'm not looking for you to give me your holy, godly self. That I wouldn't need to create this whole world for that. We have that in Shemayim. We have all the Kedusha. I want you to bring to me specifically your animal selves. When we bring our animal drives and our materialistic drives, that's when we get to the highest level of Kedusha, even higher than before. And that's why when someone sins and they bring a korban, a chatas, they get to a higher level of connection close to Hashem than even before that they sinned. Because you're bringing Hashem not just in the spiritual, but even in the physical, mundane areas of our lives. So that's part one of this class. Part two, so cool. We're going to go now to Parsha Tzav, to this week's Parsha, something I've never learned before, ever. I heard this week from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, from the altar. Okay, so if you open your sources, in Parsha Tzav, we have in the very, very beginning of the Parsha Tzav means command, which means Tzav also united, Tzav to b'chibur, letzal to unite, to connect two things. So we have this halacha that I never heard about, that we actually say in davening. I mean, I've heard of it, but I didn't process it properly. In davening, we say in Karbanos every morning, we read about the Truma Tadeshen. Any of you ever heard about the Truma Tadeshen? Deshen or Desh? Let me open it up here. Deshen. Anybody know what Deshen is? Deshen is the ashes. So we read this, and I'll read it to you a little bit. Vayikra, this is in this Parsha and Tzav. Eish, the second source. V'lavash hakohen mido bad. He wears linen, michnasei bad, and linen pants. Yilbash al basoro, on his flesh he puts on all of linen clothing. Beheri mesadeshen, and he lifts up the ashes, asher tochal eish, that the fire has consumed. What does he do with these ashes? That the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar to ashes, and he takes this ashes, he scoops them up, and then what does he do with it? And he puts it on the side of the mizbeach. Then the next pasuk says, he takes off his clothing, he puts on other clothing, not kahuna clothing, And he takes out the ashes from outside of the machana el makom tahar, to a pure place. Okay, and what is this mitzvah, and why, and what is the deep messages we can learn from this? This is something that for some reason we say every day. There's two mitzvahs said here. In the first pasuk is a mitzvah for the Kohen every single morning, every single day, to take a scoop of ashes, just one, from the mizbeach, from the remnants of whatever the carbon was, the olah that was brought overnight. All night there was an olah burning to Hashem. The fire is burning all night. And the Kohen has a mitzvah to take one scoop of it and then to walk down the ramp of the Mizbeach to this, all the way to the bottom of the Mizbeach, turn around, go to the side of the Mizbeach, and just dump it on the floor there, next to the Mizbeach, and it just stays there. Now, there's two opinions happens to it. I forget the first one. One of them is that it gets reabsorbed by the earth, and the other one, I think, it miraculously, disappears. But then the next pasuk says, then it says he takes off these clothing, his richest clothing, and then he takes the ashes outside. We learn from the Chachamim, this is two separate halachos. One is done every single day. He takes just one scoop of ashes. The other one is it says that when there's a pile of ashes so big on the Mizbeach, because of all the Karbanos that are offered, scoop every day is not enough. One scoop on the side of the Mizbeach. So what is that one? That one, he takes a big vessel, he fills it up with all the ashes to make room for more Karbanos, and then that one he wears other clothing for. That happens as needed. It's not a daily thing. As needed, whenever ashes need to be removed and cleared, besides that one scoop he takes every single day that gets reabsorbed, now takes a big vessel and takes it outside of the Mishkan, outside of the Machane Leviim, outside the Machane Bnei Israel, outside of all of the camps, and finds a holy place that's not impure and leaves it there. And then the wind scatters it away eventually. It scatters in the wind. So that is a separate mishvah. Now, why is this important? It's the vote of the Kohen. How is this in our soul? What is the psychological meaning of this? How do we experience this in our life? There's a beautiful, beautiful teaching of the Alter Rebbe, very deep teaching, that explains what is ash. Right, we're moving. The mitzvah is sa'as adeshin. There's heyer mitzvah deshin, moving the deshin every day to the mizbeach, and then another mitzvah that is taking the deshin out. Now, why is it two separate mitzvahs? What is the deeper meaning of this? Why does he have to switch clothing? Why is one brought next to the mizbeach and one brought outside of the machane? Why is one done every day and one done once in a while? What is the deeper meaning of this? How is this in our soul? And so first, we explains what is ash. What are ashes? When do we get ashes? After what?
The Kohen.
And when do you have ash? When there's a fire. So ash is when there's a fire, which represents passion, and which is passion, which could either cause passion, like in tefillah, when we need to have passion, which the next pasuk after the ashes is that there had to be a fire burning all the time on the mizbeach. We'll get to that in a moment. But the passion that has to be during tefillah, we have to have a constant passion. Fire. So fire can either warm and bring warmth and passion in our lives, enliven our lives, and bring love and excitement and good passion in our lives. And then there's negative passions, right? Passion when we get heated and we want to do revenge and we want to say something, when we're angry. There's so many negative, destructive passions, and those fires sometimes lead us to do big things that we regret. So there's always positive passion and there's negative passion. Ashes are what remain after the passion has died out. When there was a fire, ashes show us that there was a fire, there was destruction. That's why we commemorate Tisha B'Av with ashes, to say that there was a fire, to commemorate there was a big fire, there was a destruction of the base of Mikdash, and then here's what's left is the ashes. It's what's left after the fire to remind us that there was a fire of passion. When somebody, I think that when when a person, a chassan goes to the chuppah, they put a little bit of ashes on his head to remember the fire of the whatever is remembered on the forehead. To remember the ashes of the base of Mikdash. So ashes remind us of destruction and what was left from destruction. Ashes are also everything that could be consumed by the fire goes up, and it's consumed by the fire, and it goes up to God, it goes up to heaven, whatever it is, it gets consumed. Ashes are what's the residue, the physical part of the fire that wasn't able to be consumed and uplifted and elevated. So if the fire uplifts the animal soul, or whatever sacrifice we're bringing in, it uplifts us. The ashes are what's left afterwards, the dung that's left afterwards, whatever can't be. Now, when we learned actually, when you burn oil, is there any ashes left? Is there any residue left? Because oil represents the part of your holiness of your soul, and it's all holy, it's your godly soul, nothing's left. There's no ashes, there's no residue left because it's perfect and holy and pure. But when you burn a candle, there's some residue left. When you burn a little bit, when you burn paper, when you burn something that's more physical and coarse, that's not holy and spiritual. So when you burn spirituality, only godliness, there's no ashes left afterwards. But the more physical something is, the more coarse something is, the more unrefined and mundane and coarse it is, the more ashes that are left to it, right? So the more coarse somebody is, so let's go back to this metaphor. So the metaphor is, let's say by davening, when someone goes to daven or to bring a karban to Hashem, or to in the towns they say just to bring a karban to Hashem, to be close to Hashem, to bring his karban, to bring his Yetzer Hara, and to do this big mitzvah. Or when nowadays we go and daven to Hashem, we're on the high, we're bringing our passion into our davening, and we're out giving of ourselves, and we're sacrificing ourselves, and we're giving the modern day karban to Hashem. Afterwards, there's always going to be ashes left over, because there's a part of yourself that is not, there's a part of ourselves, usually, unless we're all God, unless we're a perfect tzaddik and our pure oil, and all spirituality, because we're a physical human being who's flawed, at the end, there's going to be a pile of ashes. That's there. That's waiting there. And that represents part of ourselves that's less than perfect. Imperfections start to come out and be sorted out. I once heard, actually many years ago at the convention, not many, I'm not that old, but a couple of years ago at the convention, I heard Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson speaking about something unrelated to this, that teaches that only when there's a fire, you get to see the ashes. The ashes were there all along. The negative traits inside of you, the fact that you're not perfect, the fact that you have problems, that you need things you need to work on, they were always there. The ashes were there. They only get to see them once there's a fire, when there's holiness that burns and you take out all the holiness. Then when you light it on fire and you boil it, that's when you get to see the negativity. And he gives an example of he's bringing down from the altar, but he gives an example of refining. There's always imperfections in silver or gold, and the way they refine silver is they heat it up, and the more they heat it up, the more they're able to see. I don't know anything about silver, but this is what he says on pressing the Alter Rebbe, that they boil it, the more they heat it and add fire to it, the more the imperfections are visible, and then they sift out the imperfections, and then they get more and more refined silver. That's how they refine silver, from being black to being beautiful and silver. So when you light something up, when you light fire to it, when you're in passion, when you're close to Hashem, when you have a good fire, suddenly at the end you're left and it lights a fire and it shows you and it lights up all the darkness that might be inside of you. So you might be despondent at the end. You're like, look, so much darkness is in there. But it was there all along. We just didn't see it because there was no fire to light, to separate the positive from the negative. And what I heard from him a couple of years ago was that nowadays everyone is like, this generation is so low. Look at all these issues coming up this generation, all these gender problems and all these things this generation that we never had, drug problems that we never had in the past generations. We're the lowest of the low. And the Alter Rebbe names it and says, no, in fact, we're the highest of the high. That there was always these problems. They were just hidden problems, right? All these, people hid them. They were hiding. But now our generation is so sensitive, spiritually sensitive. We're so on fire. We're so connected that these things that were brushed under the rug, that no one ever, they were there. Now they're resurfacing to the top. We're finding all of these imperfections, and we're and we're sorting out the last dredges of imperfections. Right before Mashiach comes, it says the holiest time, the youth, that nowadays they're so sensitive to any lie. They're like, the younger kids, the more pure they are, the more sensitive. Like, I mean, that's not true. He says something that's not true, right? And I'm like, all right, what was that a little bit not true? So they're so sensitive because they're so pure. So the more pure you are, the more sensitive you are to impurities, to things that aren't good, to things that are bad. You could see right from wrong more. So it's not that we're such a low generation. In fact, that we're so holy, we're on the verge of Mashiach coming, that all of these things that weren't even recognizable, that were underneath, that were stuffed under, they're now resurfacing to the top, so we can deal with these issues. We can sort through them. We can refine the issues and bring them up to the surface so that we can talk about them. Right? When there was all these molestation was always existed, but no one was even addressing it. They were just ignoring it. Now we're like, no, this can't exist. We have to eradicate this. We can't live with this disgustingness in our mix. We have to talk about it. We have to eradicate it. We have to get rid of it. So we're holier than ever in that way, that we're so sensitive to these impurities because we're lit up, because we're on fire, because we're much more connected to the Atzmus.
Does it mean that we have more clarity?
More clarity ourselves. Yeah, we have more clarity and we're more sensitive. Somebody who's less refined will be okay with lying more, with the lies that they say. Human beings say 35 lies a day. So we're more okay with it. But the more we're lit up we are, the more on fire we are, the more we light a candle to ourselves, the more holy we are, the more we're with clarity and what's wrong. Those things start to bother us, right? Let's get exposed to the truth, or to Kedusha. Yeah?
What did you say happened to the lamb when you burned the lamb?
Lamb?
Lamb.
I don't know.
Sheep, I thought you said.
Sheep?
Something about Pesach and the lamb, and there was nothing left.
If I did, I forgot. So
make it up now.
Now, going back to this idea, so ashes are kind of like a negative, the negativity that remains, because it's that which can't be brought up to Hashem. It's not holy. It can't be brought up as a sacrifice. So it's like a pile of reminding us of all the issues. And that's only there when there's a fire, when there's Kedusha. Okay, so now that we clarified that, what do we do with these ashes, right? There's two types of ashes. So the first thing the Kohen does is that every day, instead of saying, oh, I'm such a bad person, we say, no, these ashes of your imperfection, I'm going to uplift them. The Kohen was instructed to wear his big day kahuna and to elevate them and to bring them up and then put them, they're not perfect, to put them on the side of the mizbeach, on the bottom of the mizbeach, on the side as a reminder to us, to say, look, now that you're on a holy level, now that you've elevated yourself, you brought your animals off to Shem, now you see what's left of you to work on. It's motivating, it's a reminder, it's like a list. Let me write down all the things. You come out from a shir, right? You see, there's things I need to work on. Instead of being despondent, you're like, oh, let me remind myself, let me have this pile and write down all the things I want to work on in myself. I want to be better at this, I want to be better at this, I want to strengthen this, I want to daven better, whatever it is, all the pile of things that you know that you're not good at. So it brings to light the ashes, the residue, the things that aren't so good, the things that can't be holy, that can't be elevated right now, and it's a reminder of what we could work on in ourselves. That's the pile. That's why the Kohen says, it also tells us you're human. Of course you're going to have ashes, right? It's a reminder that, yes, you're human. You get to have free choice. You have good and bad inside of you. We sifted out the negativity. Now you can work on it. And that's why we don't just dispose of it. We don't just throw it in the garbage. We say, no, we need this as a reminder. This is where growth comes from. We're not perfect. All of our growth will be motivated by seeing and having clarity. I like that word, what we need to work on. But then there's the rest of the ashes. There's another type of ashes. So that's motivating ashes. Those are seeing our flaws or what we still need to work on. Then he says, this is so brilliant, that there's the ashes of depression, and that's a different type of ashes. The ashes that tell us I'm garbage, I'm useless, there's someone, I can never be good, I'm such a bad person, there's always someone better than me, I can never be as good as them, right? I'm a piece of, I never do this, I never daven, I always say lies, I'm such a bad person. There's the ashes of depression that lead us to, rather than being motivated to become better, and like, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna be a better person, I'm gonna be a better mom, I'm gonna be nicer to myself, it motivates us to want to go into bed and do nothing and lie in bed and be like, I'm a failure, I'm a piece of garbage. Those ashes, he says, have no place near the mizbeach or anywhere. In fact, the Kohen should take off his big day kahuna, take them and bring them outside. Get them out. Get rid of them. Get rid of those thoughts, those feelings of ashes, of depression that make me feel like I'm garbage. Put them where they belong, which is all the way out. They have no place in Judaism. They have no place in the Mishkan. They have no place in the Machane Yisrael. They are all the way outside to be scattered away by the winds. Get rid of those. Take those out. I'm consciously taking those feelings of depression out. And we learn this in Tanya, who mentioned that we have to have a Tanya class, that there's a difference between atzvus and miriros. When we feel bad about ourselves, there's one type of negative feelings of ashes that leads us to miriros, which is bitterness and saying, I'm so far from Hashem, I want to be closer. One motivates us to want to do more, and the way to know which is which, if it's atzvus, it leads us to want to do nothing, to feel bad about ourselves and want to distract ourselves and do coping mechanisms of going on our phone. I'm sure I don't know what it was in those days, eating or going to bed, or self-pitying and self-loathing. It makes us not want to do more. It makes us not want to do more. That's ashes that belong far away, out of here. Get them out of here. Dispose of them. Don't put them near the mizbeach. We have no room for those. When they're cluttering us, when they're holding us down, we declutter those. And we're going to talk about more about decluttering the ashes, about Pesach. That's what we want to stomp out the Haman. We want to declutter all those feelings that hold us back. But when they're mariros, they bring us to want to be closer to Hashem. I want to daven more. I want to be better. I want to work on myself. I'm motivated. They're empowering me. There's a story that the Rabbi Lau, the chief rabbi of Israel, tells of when he went to visit the Rebbe, and he met with the Rebbe shortly after the Yom Kippur War, and the Rebbe asked him about what the situation in Israel is like, and he said to the Rebbe, "Was Vayikra-Tzav, what's going to be?" And the Rebbe said, as Jews, we don't say what's going to be, we say, what are we going to do about it? One leads us to feeling helpless and like I can't do anything, like we're just victims. And one is, what can we do to be better about this? How can we fix the situation? What can I do to bring more light, right? And it's and I find myself caught in this loop all the time, right? There's like feeling like I'm stuck, I'm down, I feel bad about myself, like the like after a share, or like I don't want to give a share, I can't give more, right? Always like the feelings of like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. Those don't lead me to want to do more, right? Those feelings don't lead me to want to do, they lead me to not want to do more classes and to be afraid to reach out, to do more, to start more. Like I didn't start the Tanya classes. I'm like, what if no one comes? What if, feelings like that, and those feelings are the ones that go away. And then there's feelings of like, oh, you know what? I should be teaching more. I want to be doing more. I want to be getting better. So we can change in every situation. We can say, rather than feeling feelings of like, feeling like I'm so bad, I'm so there's what's wrong with me, I'm such a bad person, I never do this, I'm the worst mom, I'm the worst person, right? I never go to Torah classes, I never daven. Rather than that, we can start to see like, okay, well, what's something positive I can do about it? Let me get this. What's something I could do? Let me change the question to what will be to what can we do about it? One type of ashes is resignation or apathy, and the other type of ashes is determination and motivation. And that's the one we want to keep to remind us. We want to write on a list of things we want to work on. And the part that tells us, the voices that in our head that tell us that we're not enough and we'll never be good enough and we can't do it and we're worthless pieces of garbage, that's the one that we take out. That Hashem tells them, that's Hotzas Hadeshen. Take that. So remind yourself, Hotzas Hadeshen, take those ashes and get them out of here. Put them away. They're not helpful. They're ashes that don't belong anywhere in your psyche. There's a story also of the man who lost, and this is really deep, he worked for a huge company, IBM, some big company, and he was very high up in the company, and he made a deal, and he lost his company, a bad deal, went sour, made a mistake, and he ended up, his mistake cost the company tens of millions of dollars. And the next day, superiors called him in for a meeting, and he was ready to resign. He's like, you should fire me, I made a huge mistake, I lost you guys tons of money. Here, whatever you want, a severance, whatever you want, terms you want, I'll agree to them. And they said, why would we fire you? We just invested tens of millions of dollars in your education. Now, you're our biggest asset now. So rather than look at it as like a failure and you have nothing to do about it, it's just our investment. Now now you can learn from these mistakes. And it's amazing to think that, imagine, like, every time I make a mistake, I feel usually like just fire me, I'm the worst, I could never be better. But instead be like, okay, that was an investment in me. Now I'll learn from that. Now we'll know next time to be more aware, to not make that mistake. So that's what tshuva really is. Tshuva is Kabbalah al atid, not looking back and being like, I'm a piece of garbage, fire me. But how can I now learn from that for the future? And now I'm even better, because now he said that was $10 million of your education. We just educated you. That was your education. We're gonna get rid of you. We just poured into your education. Now we're gonna have someone else who's gonna make the same mistakes. No, you're worth more now because you made mistakes, because you'll learn from that, because you'll grow from those mistakes. That's such a beautiful spin on it, right? So we have two choices what we do with our ashes and which ones we want to keep as a reminder near the Mizbeach. Obviously not on top, because we're not going to say that our mistakes are as good as the holy Karban, but as a reminder right next to in the Kodesh Kodashim that we're human and we can learn and grow from our mistakes and become even better from them, and look at our mistakes as an opportunity to be even better than I was before, and then take out the ones that break us want to climb into bed and do nothing. And this directly leads, last thought of the day, into the next pasuk. Right after the removal of the ashes, there's one pasuk that says to remove the ashes every day, one that says to take out the ones that don't belong anywhere in our lives. The next pasuk, look at your source, is, look, for Vayikra, Vav Dalid, Vav Gimel, Vav Dalid, Vav Hey, Vayikra Vav, Parak Vav, pasuk Hey. What's the next pasuk? Va'esh, Ala Mizbeach, Tukad Bo Lo Tichbeh. The fire on the Mizbeach should be kept burning, Lo Tichbeh. It should not be put out. Every day. How do we make sure it doesn't come out? Every day we have to feed it wood. Every morning, and then put on the ola so that it burns. Now, if the survival of the fire passion inside of us depends on the ashes that bring us down, the ashes of depression, they want to put out our fire. Rather than making us feel more on fire, they put out our fire. The next pasuk says, don't let the fire go out. Get rid of the ashes so that your fire doesn't go out. Because if you keep the ashes there, depression, your fire is going to go out. Get rid of those ashes so that you're motivated, so you can keep having a motivation and a fire and a passion. Now, what is the fire in our soul? We learned that where's the fire on the Mizbeach? The Mizbeach in our soul, in our body, is our heart. And our heart, there's two parts of our heart. There's the inner part of our heart and the outer part of our heart. And the outer Mizbeach, the part that reflects to the world, that should be on fire all the time. There is a commandment in the Mishkan to never let the fire go out. There was constantly a fire from below. A fire from above came when they brought a Karban, but they had to keep feeding the fire. So we have to make sure that our fire, our passion for Hashem, never goes out. The next pasuk that I didn't bring you is Eish. Oh, the first pasuk, right afterwards. Right after this one is the first source. Eish Tamid. You should have this. You should know this pasuk, by the way. It's a beautiful pasuk. Eish Tamid. After it says you should feed it out, that the Mizbeach Shlo Tichbeh should be burning all the time. He adds and he says Eish Tamid. Those are the words. The perpetual fire. Tukar al Mizbeach should be kept in Mizbeach Lo Tichbeh. That's talking about also the fire in our soul. Never be put out. We should never allow the fire to go out. When we see that we're running low, what is the fire? Someone could be doing all the Torah mitzvos, learning, davening every day, mitzvos. There's no fire there. It's a checklist. And I heard once from a teacher of mine who said that we're wondering why some of our kids are not, not that this is a fault of the parents, but if we want our kids to stay from, and we're doing Shabbos, like, Shabbos, I have to clean my house, I have to cook, I have to have guests. Why would they want to? They'll be like, why would I want to do that? My parents hate it. If we're just doing mitzvahs and we're like, I have to do this mitzvah, I have to do this now, or I'm just dragging my feet to it, or I'm just doing it because I have to. Why would our kids want to be a part of that? We should reframe as a Vayikra, as an opportunity. Every mitzvah is an opportunity. How lucky am I that Hashem gave me this opportunity to have Shabbos? You know how many people in the world wish they had Shabbos, this island, this peaceful space Hashem gave us, this opportunity to just be with our family and friends and connect with Hashem. What a gift. What an opportunity. Every mitzvah that we have, we are so blessed to be chosen. You know how many non-Jews I know that wish they had this special Torah, the community that we have, the achdus that we have, the love that Am Yisrael have for each other. How lucky are we? So we need to add that passion, that somebody can keep all the Torah mitzvahs. If they don't have that passion, it's not going to last. It's going to die out. It's going to burn. To reinstate that passion in our relationship is vital to every single mitzvah that we do, to do the same mitzvah with a passion. Someone come to our door for tzedakah, and I'm guilty of this. And I actually felt like I was having a hard, just a lot going on. And like when the woman came for tzedakah, she apologized to me for bothering me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I messed up. If someone's apologizing for bothering me, it means I'm not giving her the feeling that I'm like so happy to do this mitzvah. So I really had to like turn that around. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I just had a hard day. I'm doing a lot right now. Like you literally made my day. Like seeing you being given this opportunity to do a mitzvah. Like I'm sorry I gave you that feeling. Like that was something to check ourselves. We can do the mitzvah of tzedakah and make we're doing our obligation. I have to do this, and we give them and then we give off this feeling of like I have to do this, or like wow, you just made my day. Thank you for coming, giving me the opportunity to be a higher person, to be a giver, to emulate God. Like what a schus. Thank you so much. I hope you don't have to ask for tzedakah again, but I'm so grateful that you came to me to be that shaliach, right? We can look at everything and have fire within it. For Shabbos, for every mitzvah, we can be like, oh, I have to take care of my kids and give them the feeling that they're a burden. Or we can say, wow, I'm so lucky to be a mother, that I have a child that I can take care of, that I can change their diaper, really. And we can reframe everything with that passion, and that I have a home, that I have children to take care of. How blessed am I that I have live, healthy children to take care of, right? Everything could be done as an obligation or with a passion. So Eish Tamid reminds us to infuse. There has to be a passion always with every single fire that's constantly burning, and that we want the mitzvahs to continue for us and for the next generation as well. They have to be infused with a passion. That's what Chassidus is about. So how do we fan that flame? How do we make sure the fire is there? So the Kohen was told constantly add wood to the fire. Add Torah. There's 3 ways that we keep the fire aflame, the flame alive. Through Torah, through learning Torah, which is coming to Shirim, and specifically Pnimiut Torah, right? Learning the secrets of Torah from Kabbalah, from Chassidut, the parts that connect to your neshama, that light up your neshama. So learning Torah is number 1. Avoda is davening. That's a big one. When you daven to Hashem and you talk to Hashem, if you just talk to Hashem and thank Hashem, bless Hashem. If you don't open up your siddur and just say a tefillah and cry out to Hashem for what you need, if you need to talk to Him, thank Him for everything that you have in your life. That's the second way to keep that passion and to remind yourself what a schus you are to have this relationship with Hashem. And number 3 is gemilas chasadim, to do more acts of mitzvahs. The more we give, we say when we're feeling blah and dead in our life, we have to add more wood, add more mitzvahs, go and do for other people, right? When we do for other people, it lifts us up with them. So we go and do more kindness and strengthen our connection through tefillah and through coming to inspire ourselves, through listening to a shiur, just opening up a book, an English book of Torah, and reconnecting yourself to Torah. That's how we make sure that the fire and the flame is always there, and we don't get sucked into for thinking that it's a bunch of things we have to do, right? Because we are so blessed with every single mitzvah. It's the biggest gift Hashem gave us. It's called the gift of the Torah as a gift because it really is, if we remember that it is, right? Just like kids can sometimes feel like, oh, this is so hard, I have to do all this, but sometimes we have to like check ourselves and be like, who am I kidding? Like, this is the biggest blessing in the world in my life. It might feel like a burden when you're sucked into it if you don't zoom out for a moment, but if we zoom out and keep that fire alive, we can hopefully remind ourselves what a schus that we have. So l'chaim, to keeping the fire alive. There's so much more we could say about that, but to keeping the flame alive, making that eish tamid tukad al mizbeach lo tichbeh, making sure our fire is alive. L'chaim, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Were there animal korbanot after the destruction of the temple?
Oh, wait. If you like this shiur, leave a comment so I know that you're listening. And because a lot of times everyone tells me you're listening, but I don't know if you are. So leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and consider sponsoring a shiur in the future. And yeah, see you in the next video. Okay, what were you saying?